Off and one. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Welsh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic Podcast, episode 110 today. And I am here with my guest, Jessi Bennett. She was on the show last year. This is the second time she's on the show. Please, everybody, welcome Jessi. How are you doing today, Jessi?
Hey, Welsh. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me back.
So, Jessi, what have you been up to since the last time, we talked? I saw that
A lot.
on your Twitter, you had, bought your own house, you have gotten married, do you want to clarify and, tell people about it?
Yeah, I mean, personal life-wise, that's been the big stuff. I say that as if it's like a little to-do list, but it's been a lot. Yeah, I did get married to Dylan Allman, who some of your audience might know from Twitter. He's got his own little following. And then we ended up buying a house here in Austin, which is great because, we both love the city and we kind of just realized let's just do this thing all the way. So we decided to lay down some roots here. So that's all going super well. So that's my personal life. And then professionally, it's just been a ton of work at Emergent Order Foundation and more specifically on our channel, Dad Saves America. We've been continuing the Dad Saves America show, so that's ongoing. There's been tons of new and interesting guests. I would highly recommend everybody check it out. And you can find that one at youtube.com/Dad Saves America. And other than that, on the Dad Saves America channel, we have a mini documentary we've recently finished. And we just got the news this month, actually, that it's going to be world premiering at Tribeca Film Festival, which is pretty prestigious and really flattering.
That's so cool. Like, how big is that festival? Is it a big festival?
It's big. I would definitely put it in the top 5 festivals probably in the country, at least, and definitely top 10 in the world. So it's a huge honor to be able to participate.
So what does the documentary cover? What is it about and what does it talk about? What's the main things about it?
Yeah, so it's about the life of, there's this deaf actor named Troy Kotsur, and he was the second deaf person to ever win an Oscar and the first deaf man to ever win. So he won Best Supporting Actor for his role as Frank Rossi in the film Coda. And he has a really interesting personal story, and that's what we covered in the documentary. We mainly followed his relationship with his father, who was sort of his biggest cheerleader, who never really he didn't instill in him that victimhood mindset that a lot of people would probably have if they had Troy's circumstances. Being deaf, wanting to pursue a career in the creative arts, which is already incredibly competitive and difficult, but to be deaf on top of that is definitely hard circumstances. But yeah, Troy just really overcame a lot, and it's about his relationship with his father, which is why it's on the Dad Saves America channel. But yeah, I was the associate producer on that. So that was my sort of more creative role, more logistical role. But I also got to play a big role in post-production, and I did the final sound mix and sound design, which was a lot of fun and a lot of very technical work, which I love. It really, truly brought me a lot of joy to be holed up in my office, a lot of late nights just making new crazy sounds to put in this documentary. So it's been really great.
Oh, it must be a lot of hard work, very, very tiring, So when you look at your documentary, what would you say was that documentary you're working on? What would you say was your favorite, thing when it came to working on that documentary? And what was the most, interesting thing that you found out about this deaf guy that you were just mentioning?
Yeah, so that's kind of 2 questions. So my favorite thing about working on it was definitely working with the deaf child actors. So as associate producer, I handled a lot of the logistics on the actual day-to-day shooting. And that meant wrangling child actors, which usually does fall to an assistant director, an associate producer, second assistant director, something like that. But I was tasked with the bulk of that. And so in dealing with child actors, we cast all of the deaf characters in it are played by actual deaf actors. And that includes even the extras in the scenes that are recreations of Troy's life when he was a kid. So there's one scene in particular where we had, I think it was 10 deaf child actors. And it was just very fun to watch them sort of interact off set because deaf children, I learned, are this is so intuitive, but they're very physical and they're very visual in the way that they interact with each other, which makes sense. They can't hear, they have a visual means of communication, but just watching them play and sort of be just sort of I don't know, the boys in particular would be throwing each other around our office hallway and just getting to interact with the deaf kids was really rewarding. I don't have much experience being around kids in general, but like these kids were just so sweet and so funny and so like eager to be a part of the project that getting to speak with them via interpreter was also really rewarding. They were all just so happy to be there. And then your second question was my favorite thing I learned about Troy. My favorite thing I learned about Troy, I can't spoil anything from the doc. That's the thing. Oh, I will. Okay. I can't spoil anything that's specifically in the documentary, but we also had him on the Dad Saves America show, which you can find on our YouTube channel. So my favorite thing I learned about Troy from that video was that he has this really fun clip where he talks about, this was actually in the Pop Wisdom we did with him. It's another video on the channel. There's this clip where he talks about his dad, like, giving him a hunting rifle when he was a kid and him learning about gun safety with his dad. But it's a very funny story because, like, he's, like, a deaf child and he's out in the woods with a gun hunting. And, like, his dad's kind of telling him the gun safety, but, like, the reason I liked that so much is because it's so indicative of, like, how different childhood was, like, pre-2000, really. Because Troy's definitely, like, in his 40s, I might be wrong. But that was just a really funny moment. And hearing him tell that story and talk about, like, yeah, in retrospect, like, I would never let my kids do that. That was a really funny story I got from Troy.
Yeah, it was a very different time in the 90s, 80s, and the 70s, to go out and have kids, especially from the last 20 years where everybody, well, the 2000s was different. Like, I would say from 2010 to 2020, everybody's growing up with, like, the electronics, and, like, 2000 to 2010, that was, like, in my opinion, the really last time before people grew up without social media and stuff. And I really feel, I really miss those days without social media. The world was so much better. People could just talk with one another. It's just social media was pretty much designed to, brainwash people and, control people. But, like, yeah, that sounds really cool, that Troy, like, had to go through that and build himself up, because it sounds to me like he's showing the world he's not afraid to take on challenges. And that's a huge role model thing to do, Jessi, especially for someone who's deaf and has to go overcome all those challenges he's had. Man, that really motivates me. What would you say is your favorite movie from Troy?
I mean, Coda. It was the movie that brought him to our attention. But every single time I watch it, I end up tearing up a little bit. It's sort of about his relationship with his hearing daughter. So Coda stands for Child of Deaf Adults. So it's about his relationship with his daughter who can hear and is a musician. And so, of course, there's like that tension there in their relationship because he can't hear his daughter's craft. And it's about her sort of starting to leave the nest and leave home. And there's tension there because she helps the family communicate with the outside world. And it's like a very deep story, but it definitely like hits you more deeply after having worked with the deaf community a lot. Which we did throughout the course of this film. And, I don't know, I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that seems so hard, all this and that. And then, you think for another second, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a reality for a lot of the people I've been interacting with throughout the course of this project. Like, so when we first brought Troy out to do his first interview for the documentary, we also held a event at the Texas School for the Deaf, which is an absolutely wonderful school here in Austin, Texas. Absolutely love them. But we had Troy do a speech at the event because we already had him in town. It was a great thing to do. We filmed it as well. But it's like you're spending all this time around this culture and, it just gives you a whole new appreciation for like a film about the deaf, of course. But the deaf culture too also has sort of its own mindset about deafness that was really rewarding to spend time around. So their big thing is it's not a disability. I'm not a victim. And it's just like a really healthy mindset that really exemplifies a concept we talked about on my first appearance on your podcast, which is having an external locus of control, an internal locus of control, opposite.
Yeah. I remember that. So, that's true,
Yeah, just like feeling like you have agency on your life and your decisions and the world around you and all of that. So that was really, really great. I was mostly involved logistically on the doc, but it's still the like times that I did, get more involved in the creative process were all highly rewarding. And, being around the deaf community was a major part of that.
Jessi, sometimes when I go on Facebook, I sometimes see these videos of like these babies and like they're deaf. And I remember like this one time I watched this video where this baby was deaf, and like the mother like put the hearing aids on and the baby could hear for the first time. And it's just, oh man, that just, for that baby, to be here the first time, it just makes you feel, and to just see, what these people go through. The fact, that Troy says to people to not, like you were mentioning, that primary school, how it tells people not to be a victim, get on with your life, be proud of who you are. That's the thing with our society. Our society, nowadays is pretty much, telling people to embrace, it's telling people, to embrace mental illness than rather than actually like, it's telling people to actually be a victim than rather, actually, be proud of who you are, be who you are and what you're not. And I think, a lot of the mainstream media and a lot of, the military, like a lot of the, medical industry has made so much money from making people feel like they're the victim and stuff like that. And and it tells people, you should feel sorry for yourself. Look, it's just freaking pathetic, Jessi, the world we live in now, just how it brainwashes people to be like this.
Oh yeah, it's so frustrating because it couldn't even more transparently be a way to divide people. Because as soon as you have everybody wanting to be a victim, then everybody's seeing the world as this set of power hierarchies where the power at the top in any of these instances is never the government. So yeah, it's transparently a manipulation tactic. But yeah, I mean, just feeling like you have agency over your life is a damn good way to not be propagandized.
Yeah, absolutely. I think no one should be a victim. No one like should look at themselves and say, "Oh, just because I've got like a disability." No one should be a victim. Like there are so many people, Jessi, that I've seen. People like whether they have no arms, no legs, who like run marathons and like do like a big sporting events, and it's just incredible. Like a big sports follower like me, I've seen people like conquer the most incredible things. Like for example, like it's really good to have motivational people like Troy around, Jessi, it is good because in today's world, everybody is just looking for something to follow. Everybody is so desperate. That's what social media and all social media has done. It's made people so negative and like think they want to be something who they're not. And it just hasn't helped the world, especially, personally, I feel like social media was made to pretty much destroy the Western world, and it was used to destroy the nuclear family unit. And it's such a shame, because back in the day, those days, in the 80s and 70s, kids, grew up with just playing outside, and people were taught to be who they are, and now it's just you need to be something, and it's just it's so sad because people will also look up to these people, for example, in the conservative sphere and the libertarian sphere, and even I wouldn't say the libertarian sphere has that much drama compared to like the conservative and liberal sphere. But the conservative fear and the liberal fear just have so much drama. It's such a shame, that people will actually look up to these people and they don't even know who they are. And it's such a shame, Jessi,
Yeah, that was a lot. So, yeah, I'll start with the social media thing. It's interesting. I have a sort of dissonance when it comes to social media because while I think aspects of it are a net negative for society, my experience on social media has been largely positive. I attribute that to the fact that I don't act like it's real life. I don't feel like it's real life. I do not have any sort of parasocial relationship that would ever guide a day-to-day decision of mine. So I think it's just about being responsible when you use it more than anything. For instance, social media, I moved to Texas when I was 21, and a lot of my best friends in the world still live in Ohio. And, I can know now pretty quickly when one of them has a baby, or I can pull out my phone and I can call and I can actually see their face. And granted, it does not give you the same like stimulus that talking to a person face to face does, but if the option is no contact at all, I think that's pretty great. So, yes, it can feel evil at times, but I think it's good to see the positives too. And I think that the negatives with most new technology are frankly just sort of a phase in humanity's development and will subside with time. You mentioned something about social media targeting the nuclear family. While I do agree that there are a lot of social initiatives that do seem to be inadvertently, in my opinion, anti-nuclear family, I don't see that social media is one of them. I think that, most of the negative effects of social media have more to do with individuals using it irresponsibly. Because I think that when you blame an entire technology or an entire thing for sort of some sort of great problem, I think that you take away the responsibility of the individual in a way that is maybe socially Dangerous because that can lead again to that external locus of control, to that sense of I don't have agency. I got addicted to social media, and that's not my fault because this scientist who worked in all the Vegas casinos made it intentionally addicting. They might have, but you still knowingly made an account and logged in, and you made the decisions that led you to that point. So while I think I generally agree that the ethos of social media might skew negative, I still think that we need to take individual responsibility for our usage of it. And then the third thing you mentioned was drama within the conservative and libertarian spheres. So as somebody who works in like the real life sort of freedom sphere, I will add that the drama is exclusively online. So there's like a point to back up your earlier statements about social media being divisive. I've never once like gone to my job where I get to make cool freedom movies and been like, wow, I really can't stand this other place that is a think tank and kind of makes freedom stuff. Like, I don't know. That's just not how it works in person because it doesn't have the anonymity factor. And, you know, when you're having an actual conversation with somebody, you're not thinking that same sort of instant gratification that social media wants to wire our brains to want when we're in an argument with somebody. So there's a lot of factors there. But the like libertarian drama thing, while I do like to poke at it and peek at it online, it is largely alien to me.
Like, what planet would you say it's from?
Earth, and I'm on Mars.
You know, that's actually a good name for a book, you know, Earth and I'm on Mars. That is actually a very good name, you know, for a book. Like, you know, what would you say when you look at the libertarian movement, right? When you look at it, what would you say, you know, makes it better than the conservative movement and the liberal movement? Because, you know, it's just, you know, and what would you say, you know, you find is the most hardest things to debate conservatives on liberals on?
Ooh, that's a lot of fun questions. Okay, so you asked why the libertarian movement is better. So I believe that libertarianism as a worldview is better than conservatism or liberalism. Liberalism in its modern definition, not classical liberalism. For anybody who wants to play semantics in your comments, that's not what I'm talking about. Don't be an a-hole. However, I don't think the
well, actually, there actually is someone, you know, who's playing semantics. No, just kidding. There, no one is.
There's always someone like he's not home right now. My husband plays semantics. I like was about to call his ass out, Megan in here. He plays semantics with me all the time. I'm like, stop, I'm not doing it right now. But no, I like, okay, I'm gonna be real. I do not think the libertarian movement is better. Like as a movement, I don't. Like it's weak, it's all engineers, it's no salesmen, there's very few creatives. Like it is a weak movement. It's the right movement. Like in my opinion, based on my worldview, it is the like objectively correct philosophy. But that doesn't mean that the movement's better. I don't think it is. I think that it infights more than other movements. I think that it chooses its battles incorrectly. I think that it's been completely lost in the culture war over the course of the last 3 years. I think that it is even losing its sort of online connections, which is where the one place where it's always tended to thrive. I think that I constantly see it falling into rage bait traps that'll go viral in all these different places because for whatever reason, it's like getting more boomery in terms of humor, and it's not going to survive based on the current trajectory of internet humor. So that's a roundabout way of saying I don't think it's a better movement. I think it's a better philosophy, but it's not a better movement.
I also asked you. I wish it was too. When I look at the libertarian movement, one thing I like about it, Jessi, is you're able to say how you feel. It is a true movement, you know, which is some of the limits where you get when it comes to conservatism or liberalism, you know, which a lot of the conservatives, you know, don't do anything. A lot of the conservatives don't actually talk about a lot about the Federal Reserve or the District of Columbia, the Act of 1871 or the Act of 1913. A lot of them, you know, don't, you know, a lot of conservatiors will worship the military industrial complex. They'll worship Trump as the savior when in fact he's actually not.
So I think it would be helpful for me if we defined movement versus like ideology or philosophy
Yeah,
because
sure,
you're describing conservative philosophy accurately. So as a movement and as like strength of a movement, like if they're worshiping those things, that's fine. That's within their ethos. That doesn't take away from their strength as a movement. The libertarian movement is weak, but its ideals are strong. It's the opposite. So I think that's more where I was coming from, just to clarify. Obviously, the strongest one is the liberal movement in terms of like getting people and recruiting, but it's also the weakest in terms of
absolutely.
Action because they never have an actual call to action. We talked about this a bit on my last appearance, but it's like the thesis of Martin Curry's book, The Revolt of the Public, right? It's full of all of these random uprisings that appear to be leaderless, whether they are or not. We all know we can all follow the money, but they appear to be leaderless and they never have an actual call to action until it's election season. And that's where they become strong. So all of the movements have their strengths and weaknesses, but that is completely independent of how strong the ideas of the movement are. And if we're going off of just ideas, yeah, libertarianism all the way. Well, anarchism preferably, but I'll let the minarchist in just for fun.
What would you say, Jessi, is like the biggest, misconceptions people say about anarchism, and what would you say is your favorite anarchist, philosophical person, and your favorite, book of anarchism?
Fun. Let me think for a second. This is a big one. I think the biggest misconception I hear regularly is anarchism is chaos, and like, I don't know with your audience if it's even worth digging that up because everyone has had to combat this argument so many fucking times. But it's not chaos. Anarchists will organize society, or they won't if that's not your flavor of anarchism. But I don't know. I like to think of it from the evolutionary psychology approach when I'm combating this one. It's astounding that all of these humans and all these different places in the world, at varying times, it took some parts of the world longer than others, but at some point, all sort of agreed, independent of each other, killing people is bad because we are social creatures and therefore it is selfish, which is not a bad thing, of us to not kill people. So, I sort of take that approach to combating the idea that anarchism is chaos. That's one of mine, or that it's going to be the purge or anything like that. Like, no. I also believe that humans are inherently selfish. I really like Ayn Rand's perspective of rational egoism. Throw a little bit of Stirner's egoism in there too, but I also think there's nothing wrong with that. Fuck it, right? Like if you're selfish, so be it. Because selfish to a properly functioning, human brain that prioritizes correctly doesn't mean going out and killing somebody like in the purge. So that's ridiculous, and I don't take anyone seriously that says anarchism is chaos. Favorite author? I mean, I gotta go Rothbard. Part of that is just like because of my own journey. He was the first person I read that really connected with me. So I got to put him as number one. As for my favorite anarchist text, I like a lot of Okay, it's not specifically an anarchist text, but it's the text that has most influenced my view of anarchism. Probably Planned Chaos by Ludwig von Mises. I actually didn't read that one until I was like 21. So I'd already been an anarchist for a few years at this point, but it just painted the picture of like bottom up systems in such a way that really allowed me to better define why I was an anarchist, other than just gut reaction of, power structure bad, like force bad. Like it allowed me to sort of elevate my thinking a little bit more. And it really defined like the way I think about how, economics plays into anarchism. Because I've definitely always been an econ nerd first, but that book in particular, because it's a quick read, so you can like revisit it multiple times. If you're like, oh, what was that term you used? That's great. But secondly, just bottom up systems are very core to the way I view why anarchy would actually work. And so being able to see those defined by somebody as well spoken as Mises was very pinnacle for me.
Mm-hmm. So if you like America, for example, was to have like its first anarchist president, how do you think like America would look economically, socially, and how would it get things done? And what would its political system be like if it had like an anarcho president?
Well,
especially
no
like,
especially abolish the government. They don't have the power to do that. So the first anarchist president would probably just functionally be a light libertarian, right? Because there's still Congress, there's still the Supreme Court, there's still all these other checks and balances as our founding.
Sorry about that. That's a bit of a stupid. That's a bit of a stupid question for me to ask. Sorry about that.
Are you saying like if hypothetically a button was pushed and America was anarchist tomorrow?
No. What I mean is, like, how do you think an anarchist would handle like being president? How would he handle the Supreme Court, like Congress, the Democrats, the Republicans, and like? How would he handle like issues like the Federal Reserve, and like what do you think an anarchist president would do to make America better, like to fix his political system?
Ooh, this is fun. I wish I could just live in this little hypothetical world you're painting a picture of. I mean, the most immediate thing would be to pardon whistleblowers, right? Because one of the ways in which the government gets its power is the propaganda machine, and that clearly is a very big, very symbolic threat to the propaganda machine, the same way that keeping them locked up is a threat against independent journalists. Because there's very few things that a president can actually do, like from this like high tower that people tend to put them in. So I would say start by pardoning all the whistleblowers, pardon anybody who's ever committed a nonviolent crime. Like I would say just go crazy with the pardons. That should be step one, because that sends a very clear message. I think the messaging is would be really important in this hypothetical, right? Secondly, I mean, it's just a matter of being really specific with what you pass if the legislation that lands on your desk, like, because based on like the standards of today's legislation, everything would have to be vetoed from the libertarian or anarchist perspective, right? Because even something that seems like the most like innocuous, simple little bill probably has some sort of hidden language that sends another $1 billion to Ukraine or funds gender studies programs in Iran. So like, I think that just vetoing everything that ends up on your desk that you have the power to veto, great next step. As for the Federal Reserve, I think that should be the top priority agency to get rid of by whatever means possible. But that's just me. I'm not an anarchist president.
Jessi, how do you think that Angela McGurnal has been with her job? Because there's been a lot of people, you know, who have criticized. There's been a lot of people who say that she does a good job, which I think she's done a great job. I think she's done fantastic, especially, you know, when she was running, you know, the Rage Against the War Machine War Rally, which was absolutely fantastic, which had a lot of, you know, good people there, like Kim, you know, Jackson Hiskell, like a lot of, you know, big people, especially the godfather of libertarianism, Ron Paul himself. Do you like? What do you think about like how she's doing? What do you think she's done better than other, you know, people have done before for the Libertarian Party? And do you think she's done a good job?
So I'm going to half answer your question because Angela is actually a friend of mine. Like is in like in-person friends, like we hang out. So I will say
I didn't know that, you know.
Yeah, we're friends. So I am very unplugged from electoral politics. I don't follow it. It's not good for my mental health. I don't care about it all that much. I would rather just read my nerdy books and make my silly little freedom movies and handle my like anarchist needs that way. But that being said, I do agree that Rage Against the War Machine seemed to be a really great event. I wasn't there, but from the coverage I saw of it, it seemed awesome. I recently was in an event she spoke at where she talked a lot about building coalitions across party lines on an issue by issue basis. I agree with her that that's important. This particular event had a lot of Green Party people at it. It had a lot of just independents in general at it. And it had people from a couple of other like fringe parties there. Just seeing everybody get along and agree on sort of basic stuff was very, very cool. Because I'm all for building bridges. You know, I just think a lot of people are really in the habit of burning them down. Maybe it's that social media thing you were talking about. But yeah, I mean, I think she's done a lot of really cool stuff. But she's a friend, you know, I'm not going to be. There's no world in which I get on a podcast and criticize her. But even if I hypothetically had a criticism, I wouldn't feel educated enough to voice it because I don't follow electoral politics. I think they're boring and tired. And I'm glad that there are people like my friend Angela who are able and willing to engage in them because I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. I had so like I was saying, Jessi, I had Angela on my show. She's really nice. I think she's done an absolutely fantastic job of the Libertarian Party. She's done a very good job. And I was going to have her on my show for a third time, but apparently she actually couldn't come because she was having a bit of a problem with her internet. So maybe that will happen in the next few weeks. We'll wait and see. She's a very nice person, you know. So speaking of that, Jessi, you know, I wanted to say actually congratulations, you know, on you getting married, finding your own home. Like, how has that been for you? You know, like getting your first home. How have you been coping with it? And what advice would you give to people, you know, who are trying to buy their own home? And what advice would you give to a person, you know, when it comes to setting up their own home and like not what to do and what to do?
Ooh, I feel like so we moved so recently. I don't know how qualified I am to give homeownership tips, but here's what I've learned so far. One, don't discredit discount points, even if you're planning on refinancing. If you look at the longer term math and assume that the Fed's going to keep tightening rates for at least 2 to 5 years, definitely consider those when you decide how much money you want to put down. So that's on the like buying end. On the actual owning the home end though, if you have contractor friends, don't be afraid to call them. If you have like friends that are handy, don't be afraid to call them. We have a great friend who is like the handiest person I've ever met. And his help has been super, super great to have. So definitely don't be afraid to like call upon your network if you don't know how to do something, because it's definitely better than having to pay for it. And it's also better than messing up your house because you got cocky and thought you could learn something on YouTube that's a little bit out of your typical skill set. So I would say that much so far. And otherwise, I'd say, okay, this is a hot take, but I think that the housing market's conditions are less important than your personal conditions when you're thinking about whether or not it's time to buy. It's like you can sit and look at these projections all day, but the fact of the matter is that most of this is controlled by a corrupt, evil government institution that, while they always find ways to justify what they're doing, never seems to have a long-term plan that follows through. So if you're saying, oh, the Fed's going to do this, so I should buy now, I wouldn't count on it. And I would also look more closely just at your personal circumstances. You know, it was the right time for us to buy. And no matter how many people on the stupid internet were like, oh, you shouldn't have done it. No, we should have, because it was the right time for us. We love our house. Probably wouldn't have been on the market in a year, and we're happy. So, but that's what I got to say. I mean, I'll let you guys know more, you know, once I've been in the house for longer and have done more little home projects. But as far as how it's been, honestly, I have been traveling a lot for work, so I haven't spent a whole lot of time in my house. But it's really, really nice when I get home from a work trip, just like knowing it's here. So that's been pretty great. And I'll probably be on a little bit of a travel hiatus in the late summer outside of personal travel. So, you know, I'll spend some time in the house and get a little bit more settled in then.
Oh, nice. That's really cool. Jessi, what would you say, you know, your husband Ryan, what would you say was your favorite tweet that he's ever like done? And what would you say was your favorite political work that he's done before?
His name is Dylan, and I
Oh my
don't
God, I got it
picture.
wrong again. Sorry, Dylan. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. I'm gonna be really, really real. I don't really like his Twitter, so like I don't know.
No worries, it's all good.
He is wicked smart, like crazy smart, and puts really, really good ideas out there. I just, at a certain point in being on Twitter, decided it was not for being serious for me anymore. I literally only get on there to post like dumb jokes. I like he had a pinned tweet at one point that was like, no gods, no masters, no morality, fuck it, fuck all of it. I like that one. It's like very serious, and his tweets are very serious, which is like really funny because if you know him in person, he's like basically a giant teddy bear, slash cartoon character slash golden retriever. So like, but I like that one. That one's cool. I like his little atheism debates he has on there too. I'm also an atheist and I just find them really entertaining. But as far as political projects, I mean, the only overtly political project of his he's done was he ran social media for Ghost Guns. That was a little bit more political, but
it was a pretty funny Twitter that was. It had a lot of good memes on there. What would you say that your husband Dylan like is his strongest, subject when it comes to politics and debating with?
I mean, it's not a political topic, but he is excellent at debating religion. Excellent. Tons of good ideas. He is a very, very strong atheist, and he can debate that to the end of time. He's always got new ideas and really cool new stuff to say about it. But as far as like overtly political topics, I would probably guess just like gun rights, just because he has spent so much time around that topic on a professional level. But really, he's just a good debater and can debate really anything.
Oh, it sounds like it. What would you, Jessi, when you look at like atheism? What would you say like is your favorite atheist book that you've read, and what would you say like was your favorite debate of all time between an atheist and a Christian?
I don't actually have an answer for that. I'm less into it on that level than he is. I know when I was like early in my sort of journey with it, I read a lot of Dawkins. Oh my God, I read one a couple months ago and I can't remember the name, and it's going to drive me crazy. Like I said, I'm not as deep down the rabbit hole as him. I could not tell you the name of a debate. But I mean, I have my own reasons. It's not really a topic I'm super duper public about because, I don't know. I think that if you're somebody who works within the movement, it's not necessarily productive because you're going to meet a lot of people from a lot of religious backgrounds, and people are touchy about that, understandably so. It's to a religious person, being religious is for a lot of them very core to their being, right? It's your whole worldview is structured around your God. So I don't know. I largely stay out of it as far as my like public appearances and what I post on the internet, except for the occasional poking fun at a religion tweet. But people know it's in good fun.
What would you say like is your favorite meme of poking fun at religion of all time?
Favorite meme?
Yeah, of like the one that was poking like
So
fun
this
at
is
religion.
funny, but so as an atheist myself, like I find memes making fun of atheism to be the funniest religious memes because like I'm aware that it's kind of ridiculous in some ways. I really like the ones where it'll be like Christians in the afterlife if they're wrong, and it'll be like a blank screen, then it'll be like atheists, and it's like them burning in hell. Like I find that really funny. Because like I'm fully aware of the risks of this decision of mine. Call it high time preference behavior if you want. I just don't think there's a God. Sorry. I don't know. I tend to prefer the memes making fun of atheists. Like, I know I'm probably a little bit goofy for this opinion, but I don't mind.
No worries, that's all good. Sometimes like when I look at like creation and I think to myself, Jessi, like if God created this world, right, and then Christians say he's so good and so loving, why is it he created suffering? Why is it that he allows, like innocent babies to die? Like, and why is it, he would create us on this rock, like in the middle of, this atmosphere, like, of like in the middle of like this dark, place that we have the universe and potentially a multiverse. Like, why would he want to like create the multiverse or something like that when he could have just made like a simple creation that's on Earth? It's just like, and it's so ridiculous. Like I remember watching a long time ago, there was a video by Stephen Fry where Stephen Fry was saying, like that if God was real, he would have to be evil. God can't be all good, if he's real, because especially with all the evil in the world that goes on, nuclear explosions, where was, God, where pretty much, where Japan had like the nuclear bombs were dropped in them. Where was God, when the Jews were getting killed by the Nazis? Where was God, where the Armenians were getting, killed? So it's just like the whole belief, where was God, where when that person, let's say for example down the road was getting killed by that murderer, like what if that person getting killed was a Christian, he thought that God was supposed to protect him or something like that. So I watched this guy called Dark Matter 2525, and he's also really good. He does a lot of good videos like talking about religion and Christianity. It's a really complicated one, Jessi, isn't it? It really is a complicated reality we live in.
Thoughts about a few things you said though. So you mentioned if God was real, why is there suffering? It was not enough to convince me, but the most interesting argument I've ever heard from a Christian perspective about that was basically that, if we don't experience like suffering on a really profound scale on earth, heaven won't like feel as good. Like we need something to compare the lack of
suffering. Absolutely. Like humans need hard work. What was the thing that like encouraged you to become an atheist? Like the one thing that just woke you up and realized, okay, there's no God. Like the strongest argument you saw from a debate, or like.
Yeah, I just could never be convinced. I mean, it was less of like one individual instance and more of like the collection of my experiences over time. I definitely believe in the metaphysical. I just think that like to call whatever is happening to make things whatever, like God is an oversimplification. I think that to like act as though the metaphysical is all due to one sort of singular being is also unlikely. One big thing for me was this is so goofy. I went down this rabbit hole at one point where I was watching a lot of docu-series and documentaries on like sort of afterlife experiences. So for instance, people that like actually die and are brought back to life. And in those circumstances,
like Saw,
describe the same afterlife, and that afterlife never has any sort of singular power. It's just that the life force, the life of everything, is God, not God, but God. And I don't know. I just don't think that the odds of any existing religion being accurate just feel so infinitesimal to me that to like dedicate myself to one just for the sake of like filling like the God-shaped hole that I actually do believe every human has in their heart. I think that it's part of how we're wired, and I think that that's why people who are religious are on average happier than people who aren't. And for the record, that's why I never preach atheism. I think that it is a like net positive on the individual level in today's world, now that we don't have fucking crusades. You know what I mean? But that being said, like,
yeah,
can't like find any one religion special. So if no one religion is special or more right to me, why would I follow it? I also like, in the same vein as there's like documentaries, I think that like the kids that think they can remember their past lives, but then they're like tested and they actually remember it, I find them fascinating. So like, if I was gonna pick a religion, that might just like be enough to compel me towards something involving reincarnation, but I don't fucking know. I am a like finite being on this shit orb hurling around a ball of gas. So to sit here and like say that I know which religion is right,
in the middle of like miles and miles of other planets that probably have no life on them, that are probably, you know, their life is probably just insects, or
in this
like probably, you know,
it's we could be eaten by a black hole at any second. Planets
just,
fucking disappear, stars explode. Like, and for me to sit here is
or
this
a big,
and say I know what God is? What the fuck is that?
or a big crunch. Or a big crunch, or you could have like some, you know, aliens come down from space, or like maybe aliens of another dimension.
Yeah. No. So like, for all of that to be like a possible reality, and for me to say that like I know what God is and which religion is right, just feels like so like self-important and like full of it. I don't know. What's the I can't say it on the air. Never mind. You okay, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know the Alex Jones line that people sometimes equate to all I know is that I know nothing? Like, that's me. Like, I'm not
Yeah. It's so funny, hey. It is really good. I know what you mean by that. Jessi, so sorry, the time is actually up now. The 40 minutes is. Before we go, what would you like to say to everybody? Sorry if we have to cut the show really short. What would you like to say, you know, to the audience? And since you're someone, you know, obviously you've just got married, moving to your first house, like what advice would you give? Like what other advice would you give to other couples out there who are struggling with depression, or struggling, you know, with wanting to move out, and yeah, pretty much all that stuff.
Oh, interesting. Go outside, go on a walk. Walks are good. No, actually that was something that really helped us progress our relationship so quickly. Like, I started to say it as a joke because I end like most podcasts that I'm on by telling people to touch grass, because I think everyone desperately needs to touch grass. But I'm kind of being serious. Like, for us, we went on this like weekly walk for the longest time, and that meant like one-on-one time where we were walking for hours out in the sun, getting all the like happy brain chemicals from the sun and walking. And we just got to talk for hours on end. And it's easier to talk to somebody too when you're walking side by side. There's actually been like studies done on this. When you're side by side with somebody, you're more open about your thoughts and feelings, because being face to face with them feels confrontational. It's like some sort of weird evolutionary bullshit in our lizard brains. And it's actually like disproportionately true for men. But that being said, I don't know, go on a walk, go outside, enjoy each other's company, maybe buy a house, don't rush it. Everyone's got their own circumstances, right? Ours happened to pan out in such a way that this is what we did, and we are so happy. But you know, and I'll say this too: if you're somebody who wants all of that one day and is not in a position for it yet, just be patient, because instant gratification is for trolls on the internet, not for people in real life who have major goals. So take your time. But other thing I will do is, if you don't mind, I'm going to plug all my work stuff one more time. So if
you know, it's just all good. Go for it.
Yeah, if you're interested in freedom-minded video content, you can check out my employer's website, Emergent Order Foundation. It's eo.foundation. That's where you can find information about the overarching studio. For our Dad Saves America brand initiative, which I talked about a little bit earlier, that's what houses the Dad Saves America show. Some really cool like top 5 style video essay videos, and we'll soon house the Troy Kutzer mini documentary as soon as it's done with the festival run. Oh, I'm wearing the logo actually because we had a shoot today, but that's Dad Saves America. You can find that at youtube.com / Dad Saves America. And then I'm less involved with them now, but still a big fan. If you are interested in freedom-minded, anarchist-friendly, quirky counterculture streetwear. Check out No System Knows. It's an apparel brand. You can find them at nosysnows.com. And I don't have it handy, but I do have a referral link. So if anybody listening is a mutual with me on Twitter, feel free to message me for that referral link, and you can get 10% off.
Well, that's very good. Thank you very much coming on again, Jessi. We should definitely do this again sometime in the future, for time next. It's a pleasure having you. And everybody, please go and check out her work. She does fantastic. I really, just to let you guys know, she also go check out her Twitter. She does very funny memes. I think they're absolutely fantastic, some of the posts she writes. Definitely go check her out, give her all the support. Go check out that, documentary that Save America, the Save America website is going to be posting. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Welsh Republic Podcast, episode 110. Take care, everybody. And just to let you guys know, ignore the trolls. Never let any hater get to you. Take care, everybody. Goodbye. Have a nice day.